Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a nice weekend, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get right into the news here because there's quite to cover on this Sunday. DOJ arrests 3 megaseconds 13 leaders on terrorism and racketeering charges. The Department of Justice on Thursday announced the indictment of 13 high-ranking members of the Ms. 13 organization on charges of racketeering conspiracy to provide or conceal material support to terrorists, and narco-terrorism conspiracy. Vladimir Antonio Arevalo Chavez, Walter Giovanni, Hernandez Rivera and Marlon Antonio Menji Barbaratila were expelled from Mexico on February 22, and subsequently arrested by American authorities at George Bush International Airport in Houston. The DOJ announced an additional 4 co-defendants remain at large, while 6 more are believed to be in the custody of El Salvadorian authorities. The U.S. will seek their extradition. FBI Director Christopher Wray celebrated the arrest and indictment, saying, quote, "The FBI will continue to vigorously investigate and hold transnational organized groups like Ms. 13 and their leaders accountable for the continued violent and terrorist criminal activities they orchestrate." Today's indictment demonstrates the FBI's reach and commitment to seeking justice against those individuals who jeopardize American lives and liberty. We will never stop working in coordination with our international partners to protect our respective citizens from Ms. 13 and other gangs wherever they are. It concludes, quote, "Further, the defendants authorized and directed violence in the United States, Mexico and elsewhere as part of a concerted effort to expand Ms. 13. Its influence and territorial control." Where protests in Washington, D.C. garner support from conservatives, libertarians and leftists. There was a large national rally in D.C. to protest continued funding by the United States for the war in Ukraine. This event was one of the most politically diverse rallies in recent history. The rally speakers came from all political backgrounds, from the likes of the conservative libertarian Ron Paul to Tulsi Gabbard to left-leaning war correspondent Chris Hedges and former Green Party presidential candidates Jill Stein. The far left-leaning anti-war group Code Pink was also present. However, their co-founder Medea Benjamin was pressured by her organization to drop off the speaker list because they were not comfortable with Benjamin sharing a stage with right-wing personalities. According to the rally press release, quote, "The U.S. has instigated World War III in Ukraine, NATO and the U.S. are at war with nuclear superpower, Russia and countless 1,000s are being slaughtered for the empire. Billions of taxpayer dollars are being torched at the altar of the military-industrial complex, and a corrupt Congress. The doomsday clock is closer to midnight than ever before." Close quote. The rally in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. was largely ignored by the mainstream media and up to a pro-Putin rally. This is inaccurate as the protests made no mention of Putin at all, and was a balanced assortment of peaceful people asking for an end to war. In fact, it was one of the most peaceful protests as noted by the reporters in attendance. Over 5 American political parties came together for a single cause. Quote, "It's just so weird," said Code Pink's Medea Benjamin. She continues, quote, "The people who I thought were the peacemakers were the progressives and the Democratic Party. But on this, they become pro-war. So I don't align with that ideologically with the people in Congress who are calling for an end to the weapons. But I want to get everybody in Congress to say that. And I think the polls are shifting that show now that it's only 48% of Americans in the latest AP poll that wants to send more weapons to Ukraine. That means the majority of American people either don't or don't understand. And that means that Congress and the White House are totally out of sync with what the American people are thinking now." Biden official clears Ukraine of misusing U.S. financial aid. Ukraine is not misusing the tens of billions of dollars in direct financial assistance. It is receiving courtesy of U.S. taxpayers, according to a top Biden administration official. Samantha Power, the administrator for the U.S. Agency of International Development, gave the public affirmation during a CNN live town hall on Thursday evening. Her assurances come just hours ahead of the White House revealing that it would give another $2 billion in military aid to Ukraine as its war with Russia officially hits its one-year mark, bringing the total amount of American military assistance to over $30 billion in just 1 year. The former Obama administration official further claimed Ukraine has made progress and working to root out corruption, while officials are concerned newly checking to ensure U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used properly. Quote, "Up until this point, We don't have any evidence that U.S. assistance is being misused or misspent. But again, the key is not resting on anybody's goodwill or virtue. Power said she was responding to a question posed about Ukraine's long history of corruption. Quote, its checks and balances the rule of law. The integrity of officials, Power added, were the key to her confidence in the Zelensky administration. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry has been dealing with a string of corruption scandals, the latest one concerning excessive payments for food. Other allegations included dubious military contracts with under-the-table kickbacks or deputy ministers, the sale of military equipment including American hardware to international buyers, and embezzlement from the national winter aid budget. Last month, President Zelensky sought to clear the air by sacking a string of officials in the wake of corruption allegations. So give us a hint on Biden's 2024 plans. Biden gave one of the clearest signals yet that Biden will run for another term amid speculation that he might be bowing out of a second presidential bid, saying on Friday, but his team is trying to figure out the time and place to announce it. Quote, how many times does he have to see it for you to believe it? She said in Kenya on Friday during a 5-day trip to Africa. She continues, quote, he says he's not done. He's not finished when he started, she added, and that's what's important. Since entering office, Biden has been dogged by questions and speculation about a second presidential bid, with critics citing his relatively advanced age. Biden, if re-elected in 2024, would be 86 years old upon leaving office in early 2029. Biden has often said that he plans on running for another term, telling reporters during his first news conference in March 2021 that he would run in at a news conference after the November 8 midterms. He told reporters that his intention is to run, but he would not make a decision until early 2023. Despite his public statements, there continues to be intense speculation about Biden's future. A Political article published this week and citing, quote, for people familiar with the president's thinking, said that there is no hard deadline, which has allegedly caused some Democratic donors and strategists to come up with a contingency plan. Inflation surge shows the Fed got it wrong. The personal consumption expenditure data released Friday confirmed the January inflation boom. The Bureau of Economic Analysis said that its personal consumption expenditure, or PCE, price index rose 0.6% in January, compared with December, a substantial acceleration over the December pace of 0.2%. Importantly, the prior month's figure was revised from 0.1%, and November's index was also revised from 0.1% to 0.2%. Indicating that inflation was already hotter, and prices were already higher than previously believed. So prices are rising faster from a higher base. The data indicates that Wall Street economists underestimated inflation. The consensus was for a 0.4% gain. According to economists, the idea of a soft landing, inflation coming down without serious damage to the labor market or economic growth, was at least partially based on the idea that inflation would continue its slide toward a benign pace after peaking last summer. The CPI rose 0.5% compared with the month before, a big step in the pace of price increases from 0.1% recorded in December. According to data released by the Labor Department last week, the December figure was revised up from a preliminary report showing the CPI had declined by 0.1%. Compared with just a year ago, the CPI is up 6.4%. Those inflation figures all exceeded expectations. And like PCE, inflation showed that prices are already higher and rising faster than we thought. The data over the past 2 weeks now makes the Fed's decision to ramp down to a 25 basis point hike look like a miscalculation. It seems likely, if they had known about the reacceleration when they were meeting 3 weeks ago, that officials would have stayed the course at 50 basis points, matching the December hike. And some significant news, folks. There's a very real chance that Mike Pence goes to jail or prison for testimony that is eventually going to give to the special counsel. Okay. Here's why the special counsel against Trump is purely political in nature. Nobody's really committed the crime here. Pence could have, and Biden could have with his special counsel, especially with Hunter. And the New York Post reporting on Hunter, possibly summarizing classified data to facilitate business deals, in addition to classified data from Biden's Senate records when he was senator without the power to declassify anything. But Pence has dozens of classified documents. This is CNN. A lawyer from Vice President Pence discovered about a dozen documents marked as classified at Pence's Indiana State. Okay, so what his lawyer is doing, suddenly finding dozens of documents very bizarre. But thereafter, Pence now because he was Trump's vice president, and this is what takes place. When you try to distance yourself, throw Trump to the wolves, and say, well, I'm the good Republican, you won't go after me. They're desperately trying to indict Pence more so than even Trump with Trump. They know they can't get him because he was a commander-in-chief. Okay. As vice president, if he lies in any way, he could go to jail or prison because he couldn't declassify. President Obama's executive order only allows a vice president to declassify documents that he or she classified initially. So if he lies about that, it's game over. He doesn't know if he doesn't know how those documents were, how he obtained dozens of classified documents, and why they're outside of the location they're supposed to be in. That's a big problem, too. So he could get caught up in trying to cover up how those documents got there. He could get prosecuted for not declassifying the documents, because he wasn't the person to classify them originally. The January committee testimony is also a situation that's initially why they want him to testify, but then they could ask him questions about the classified data once they have him under oath. So they can ask him questions. Do you have any classified documents pertaining to the January committee? And then if he says, gee, I don't think so. I don't know, then that's a big problem. Because then they can continue the investigation. They could do what they did to Michael Flynn, who Mike Pence also set up in a way they can say, well, we'll send Federal Bureau of Investigation agents to investigate or to interrogate you or have an interview with you, although he probably wouldn't allow that because of, but here consequence of perjury they want him under oath. Okay. Gee, jail time or prison, depending on 4 years in jail or prison. Perjury law. Okay. So he has a whole bunch of issues. There's classified documents. How the vice president had dozens of classified documents, this is all you have to ask. Well, who benefits from all of this? Almost certainly, there's only one person who benefits. I think she'll be the 24 nominee, Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton had servers siphoning top-secret intel outside of the United States government. There is no defense for that. It's infinitely worse than anything Trump as commander-in-chief was accused of doing, and it's infinitely worse than Pence or Biden. But see, Clinton benefits because now everyone has a classified data fiasco. But you have dozens of documents. We don't know how they got outside of where they're supposed to be. Pence is now embroiled in a classified document scandal. He's being compelled to testify, to give January testimony. Trump was not indicted. So this is the type of thing that goes on. They didn't indict Trump. He did not commit a crime. Trump is not even under federal investigation anymore. Actually, he never was for January. That was a congressional investigation. Trump was never indicted for anything other than defeating Clinton, and then they just leveled the US government against Trump. Why wasn't Trump indicted for anything if you're a never-Trumper, a good Republican, or a morally superior liberal Democrat who loves the planet, and loves that, and it doesn't know Biden's just released 200 billion barrels of strategic petroleum reserves as you want to go after the fossil fuel industry, and everything else. Biden is presiding over record highs in inflation, still inflation is going up. Why hasn't Trump been indicted? Okay, the reason is because they only want to investigate Trump. Not really, only they know they can't get him, because he's the commander-in-chief, and he actually didn't commit a crime, but they're going to ensnare everyone around him, including Pence though, and Pence stood back while the Mueller probe was going on. While all these investigations into Trump, he was complicit with trying to set up and friend Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn, what did Michael Flynn do wrong? Go read the DOJ indictment. He didn't do anything wrong with any country. They set him up. They sent bureau agents after him, one of which was eventually kicked out of the bureau, if I understand correctly, for animus against Trump. And even the Mueller probe also kicked out of the Mueller probe. You have to be really out there against Trump if you're kicked off the Mueller probe for bias. And these are the people that went after Michael Flynn. Then they said he lied. Okay. But Pence helped start it all by saying that it was this whole gossip where, Flynn allegedly lied to Pence, that they made that up in the media, and then they tried to justify the indefensible. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button to watch the next episode.